What's up, guys? Halo Repository back today with another video. Today we're going to be talking about Halo the Fall of Reach. Don't worry about that. I have no idea what that was. I don't even know of a Halo TV show or own anything from the TV show. So let's talk about this book. Okay, in all seriousness though, we are going to be talking about Halo the Fall of Reach. It feels honestly amazing to finally get to this book because, quite frankly, it is one of the best books in the entire franchise. Anytime people ask me what Halo book they should start with, 99% of the time I'm going to say the Fall of Reach, unless there's like a specific part of Halo that they absolutely love. But typically, always it's going to be the Fall of Reach. It was the first book, and honestly, it's the best book. So I did do a part 1 for this book already back when I did a Silent Storm primer. Basically what I talked about in that book is, or at least that video, is the review of part 1 and part 2, which is essentially the origin story of the Spartan 2 program. So anything from basically 2517, the moment John and the rest of the Spartan 2s are kidnapped, up until 2525 when Samuel 034 dies, and then it goes off into Silent Storm and Oblivion. But yes, so if you're looking for me to do the whole book, I will be just basically stitching that video and this video together to make like one complete edition. I'm not going to sit here and retell you everything from that part of the book because I've already done so, and it would just be redundant. Okay, so Halo the Fall of Reach was released on October 30th, 2001. It came out just about 2 weeks before Halo Combat Evolved, so yeah, basically Halo is a book series before a video game series, guys. I'm just saying that's why the books are more important. Anyways, though, Halo the Fall of Reach was written by Eric Nyland. This was obviously his first book with Halo, mostly because it is the first Halo book. And quite frankly, I think we all got to give a round of applause to Eric for just making such a superb book based off, I don't even know how much information he was given by Bungie or any of the story writers at Halo, because, you know, as we know with Halo the Reach, the game, this book has not really been their favorite. Not saying that it was a bad book in their eyes, but just that they kind of wanted to, you know, make it not canon. And we'll talk more about that by the end of this video. It certainly, though, will not be Eric Nyland's last book that we talk about. Obviously, the next book is going to be Halo the Flood with William C. Dietz. May he rest in peace. And then after that, we already get into Halo the First Strike, back to Eric Nyland, then Halo Ghosts of Onyx, and, you know, that will be his last book. Unfortunately, I do think they should get him back for another one, just saying. Okay, so let's talk about the cover. Now, The Fall of Reach has gone through, not really a number, but 2 different cover designs. In 2001, this was our cover. It is honestly just, it's such a classic cover. I mean, I bet you when you think about Halo The Fall of Reach, 99% of the time you're probably thinking about this exact cover with the Master Chief, and I'm assuming what would be Blue Team in their Mark V armor fighting in an unknown city, and I'll get more about what I mean about that here in just a moment. Now, this cover was designed by Lorraine McLeay, who had joined Bungie in 1998 as kind of like a freelance artist, and then went off to join Bungie a little bit more with some cinematic artists work in the actual game. So this was kind of her first crack at Halo. Phenomenal cover. But the reason why I talked about it is I don't know where this city takes place is because my assumption would be Reach, somewhere in Reach. The reason why I'm, you know, probably, you know, just picking hairs at this point is, spoiler alert, Master Chief never fights the Covenant on Reach, at least in this book. There's literally, he's in space the entire time. And if that's obviously him right there in the front of the book, then clearly something's going on. Now, the second cover that came out with the 2010/2011 editions and has kind of been the cover up until 2019 was designed by Gabriel Garza, aka Robo Gabo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And that is the cover you see here. I also have a copy of the definitive edition right here as well. Basically the same cover, just again, they went from like this more shiny look to a more matte look with the different versions and the different publishers. All you really know is that I actually do enjoy this cover just a little bit more because, one, it's Chief, Kelly, and Sam on the cover wearing their iconic Mark IV armor. They're holding MA-40 assault rifles from Halo Reach, and you see the planet of Reach getting glassed in the background. The reason why I like this one a little bit more is because I feel like it makes a little more sense. I do love seeing like the little funny like logos that they have on these so you can tell who is who. Like Kelly has a rabbit on her chest piece, Chief just says 117, and Sam down here says 034. Obviously the 117 is on the wrong side of the chest piece, and as far as we know, they didn't ever actually have those on their armor pieces, especially on the Mark V, though I wouldn't be one to say don't bring it back. But yes, these are the covers. These are the covers of The Fall of Reach, at least for the official books. There are other comic books, and of course the Halo The Fall of Reach movie have their own covers. I'm not going to be jumping into those. Well, I might briefly talk about the comic book, but I might do that in its own separate video, or I might not. I don't know yet. But yes, these are your Fall of Reach covers. These are the only versions besides the Polish edition, which I'm not going to talk about purely because I know it's not AI, but that just looks like something you would see from an AI at this day and age if you told it to make a Halo cover. And the other one being the Halo, the Master Chief Omnibus cover. I'm not going to talk about that because one, I've already done so, and two, it's a cover for 3 books, not purely just the Fall of Reach. But yes, these are our Fall of Reach covers. The original version kind of has a boring back, just giving you a description of the game. Similar to the other one, but it just has the cover art also on the back. Okay, so let's talk about the actual story of this book. This book picks up in, or at least part 3, up until part 6, which is what we're going to be talking about, picks up in July 17th of 2552. We are aboard a UNSC remote scanning outpost known as the Archimedes within the Sigma Octanus system. The book starts off with Ensign William Lovell, who is basically just manning this outpost. Essentially what his job is to do is to, evaluate probes that are going in and out of slip space, basically trying to see if there's anything in slip space that's going to be coming out soon enough, at least in this sector, that, shouldn't be, such as, pirates, black market dealers, or hopefully not, the Covenant. Lovell kind of saw this as an easy job. He definitely rose up in the ranks in the UNSC, but he was kind of that person who was insubordinate and just didn't really listen well, and so he was pretty much just not stranded, but sent to the gulag of this outpost to basically just finish off his career in the UNSC. However, while he's sitting there just doing his job, he gets a crazy alert, and it shows a large mass within slip space that's going to be coming out of this system soon. However, when he takes this mass and compares it to designs of Covenant vessels, he doesn't see anything that would match a Covenant vessel, specifically this mass that's coming from it. So what he decides to do is just simply log it for, an anomaly within slip space, and hopefully he just sends it off and goes about his day. The next chapter then cuts over to the UNSC destroyer Iroquois within the same system of Sigma Octanus, where we catch up with our favorite boy, Commander Keyes. He is now in charge of the UNSC Iroquois. While aboard his vessel, he does get the update of a strange mass within slip space. Now, Keyes is, a smart person, so he decides to take a look at it and go, well, whoever reported this is correct, that the mass itself doesn't look like it's anything, compared to a Covenant vessel. However, I do know one thing. Keyes opens up a file titled Dimensional Mass Compression in Sha Fujikawa Space, aka Slip Space. Basically what this entry discusses is how multiple objects within slip space often get confused, at least for probes. The sensors might read it as one giant mass, when in reality it's multiple objects coming through. With this information, Keyes realizes that this is the Covenant. Like, no other fleet is supposed to be coming here within human space, so obviously this is a Covenant army coming. With this information, Keyes contacts FleetCom and speaks with Vice Admiral Michael Stanforth, who we've seen previously in other books and earlier in this book. We can still get a sense that even though Keyes went from being an instructor from, the beginning of Cole Protocol, if you haven't seen that video already, go watch it. But he went from being just a normal, instructor at Luna to now being, of course, a commander of his own ship. But a lot of people, especially in the higher ups, still think that Keyes belongs in this position of just being an instructor, nothing more, nothing less. Either ways, Keyes informs Stanforth of the potential Covenant invasion coming to Sigma Octanus, and more specifically, the planet of Sigma Octanus 4. Stanforth agrees with his analysis and says that he's going to be sending, some support to Sigma Octanus 4, and with that, Keyes and his crew then begin their travels to the planet as well and initiate Cole Protocol because the Covenant is coming. Arriving at the planet, Keyes finds 2 Covenant frigates, a destroyer, and a cruiser that exit slip space. Unfortunately for Keyes and his crew, there still won't be backup around for another hour. And that's terrible, because this is a point in the war where things are not going well. One UNSC destroyer versus this many Covenant ships is basically a suicide mission. Fortunately for this crew, Commander Keyes is their commander. Now, without trying to get into too much details, because it's quite frankly a lot for me to try and explain, I'm going to put up this pretty picture that basically explains the Keyes loop. What you really need to know is that Keyes does a lot of amazing yet very risky maneuvers that essentially gets the Covenant to attack themselves and then leave them open for an attack by the Iroquois. This entire thing is successful to the point where he is able to destroy those 2 frigates, the corvette, and this basically leaves the cruiser to drop a couple of drop ships down to Sigma Octanius 4 and then get the heck out of Dodge. Within this moment, we have seen the Keyes loop, one of the most amazing spectacles within the UNSC, goes down in history, and it's one of the biggest things that I think is talked about with Captain Keyes and this book. That 1 hour passes by and nothing's happened besides the fact that the planet itself is under attack by those dropships that the cruiser had dropped off. It dropped around 34 dropships. In that time, though, Keyes has pretty much just alerted the planet that the Covenant is there and that they need to start, getting ready for an invasion. When the UNSC fleet shows up, they bring along with them a ship known as the Cradle. And the Cradle is essentially like this mobile command base that can be utilized to repair ships. And it's necessary because in this moment, the Iroquois was, even though able to do a lot of heavy maneuvers and prevent itself from getting mostly attacked by those Covenant vessels, it did take some damages from ramming another ship, from some of, utilizing some of its missiles, to the point that it's going to take roughly 30 hours for the Cradle to repair and refit this ship for Captain Keyes, or Commander Keyes at the time. With this, Keyes goes back to his command quarters to try and get some rest, because the Covenant will return. They're not going to just drop off a few people and then just never come back. They're clearly here for something, though he doesn't know what for, and that's what concerns him. During his little time of R&R, at least within his little headquarters, he starts to think about getting rid of his navigations officer, a man known by the name of Jaggers. And the reason why is Keyes has never really liked Jaggers. He swore on his life Jaggers drinks on the job, he's kind of insubordinate, he complains a lot. And during the whole Keyes loop, Jaggers at one point, not really mutinied, but was on the brink of mutiny because he was questioning Keyes' orders with this entire maneuver they were doing. So with that, Keyes realizes he's going to need a new nav officer. And luckily enough for someone, not really though, Keyes was impressed by the amount of details that Ensign Lovell had essentially put in that report of the anomaly of the mass coming out of slipspace. Keyes looked at it and said, whoever put all this in, all this information, and reported it, knows their shit. And so with that, he looks into Lovell's background, sees that he's a little bit of insubordination, but he thinks that this is someone who would be perfect along his crew. While this is happening though, Stanforth enters into Keyes' room, and one of the ships that had come in was Michael Stanforth's own ship. And so Keyes and him start talking about the Keyes loop and how well Keyes has actually performed, how Keyes is going to basically need a new nav officer and would prefer Lovell. And in this moment, Stanforth promotes Keyes from commander to captain. So here we are. We have our first official look at Captain Keyes, the man who will basically pilot or at least command the UNSC Pillar of Autumn in Halo Combat Evolved. As his conversation with Stanforth ends, Stanforth makes his way back to his ship, and Keyes kind of utilizes some of the cameras aboard the ship to watch Stanforth go back to his ship. And while he's studying Stanforth's ship, he happens to spot a UNSC Prowler, or an Oni Prowler, near his ship. And that immediately sparked something in Keyes' mind and let him know, okay, something big is going on here. We then cut to the surface of Sigma Octanius 4, where we meet a group of UNSC Marines who were sent out to basically set up sensors, to basically, make sure that they can sense any more movement, radar, anything type of troops coming towards their base. However, on this little escapade, they did run into the Covenant, and they ran into not just any Covenant, but hunters. One of these peoples is known as Corporal Harlan, and it's not going well for this team. First, they try to make their way back to their smaller base, and when they get there, it's already destroyed by the Covenant. So then they decided, hey, let's go to Alpha HQ, also destroyed. But it's their last little haven because, even though it's mostly destroyed, they do find a lot of other, not really a lot, but a few other Marines there that have survived. When they get there, they are informed that 99% of the fighting force within this base has been killed. And that Corporal Harlan, again, Corporal, is now the highest military service member at the base, making him in charge. So he calls in for help, and basically he's told by what I assume is Stanforth saying, hey, we read you loud and clear. It's impossible to extract you right now, but do not worry, help is on the way. Moments later, a single Pelican arrives, and Harlan's like, really? One Pelican? Fantastic, we're doomed. That is until the Pelican doors open, and a dozen Spartans walk out. As the Spartans are coming out and getting situated for, everything that's about to happen, one of these Spartans comes up to Corporal Harlan, and immediately Harlan sees the Master Chief insignia on the armor, goes into a full-on salute, and it is none other than our boy, Master Chief Petty Officer John 117. Chief immediately talks to Harlan and says, hey, what's going on? Debrief me. And Harlan says, it's gone to shit. I have a lot of injured people on my crew. We need to get out of here. And Chief pretty much says, okay, cool. Here's what you're going to do. Any injured on the Pelican right now, and the rest of you who's not injured are going to stand guard while me and my team do a couple of quick missions, and then we'll all get out of here. Chief then calls his team leaders to meet with him. We have Red Team Leader, Jerome. Wait, no, he's gone. Fred. No, wait, he's in Blue Team. Joshua 029. As well, we have the Green Team Leader, Linda 058, who is, it's weird, it's not rare, nor is it that crazy that many of the other members of Blue Team, like Fred, Kelly, and Linda, have actually gone off and been leaders of different, colored teams. But it is just weird in this moment because I've gotten so used to Blue Team being Chief, Fred, Kelly, and Linda that seeing Linda not on Blue Team and being actually in charge of Green Team was a little bit weird. All you need to know for this is Chief starts talking about their mission. Essentially what their mission is to recon and figure out what the Covenant are doing here. Then second, prevent them from doing whatever it is they're doing. And the way they do this is, they're in a city known as Côte d'Azur. I'm probably pronouncing that completely wrong. Sue me. But they are within the city, so the teams are going to go there in 3 separate ways. Basically what you need to know is that we have 3 squads of Spartans of 4. And what's weird about this interaction is when you read Troy Denning's Halo novels, right? When you read Silent Storm, Oblivion, Shadows of Reach, you get this sense that they are family within Blue Team, or Blue Team, but within the Spartan program. They're family. They've grown up with each other. They poke at each other. They prod at each other. But there's obviously always the chain of command and the respect that comes with it. But it's just so weird here when Linda and Joshua talk to the Chief because it's so robotic and just severely formal that the jokes that they usually have aren't there. And even though Fred, I think, only says a few words in this entire, at least these sections of the book, he too just feels very stiff and robotic that I'm this is where I think Troy Denning did a better job with how the chemistry of the Spartans work compared to Eric Nyland. Chief then takes Blue Team through the jungle on their way to the city of Côte d'Azur. In his Blue Team is Fred and Kelly, but also James 005, which I love because my name is James, so I always thought James was cool, even though he's done literally nothing. When they make their way into the city, they go into the sewers and basically use a snake camera to look outside of all of the sewers and look in the streets and kind of just recon what's going on. The cool and interesting part here is that Chief for the first time sees an engineer. And he's like, we've never seen this before. I could be wrong, but I could have sworn an engineer was in Meridian Divide. You would think I would know that because I just read it. But if I recall, it was such a small part that I don't think it really stuck with me. I'll double check for you. But what you need to know is that right here, Chief is he's recording this engineer. It's the first time he's ever seen one. It's the first time he believes anyone's ever seen one. Of course, it's a big war, lots going on. He could be wrong. While he's doing this, though, Chief comes across that the Covenant are heavily defending a human-like nature museum. And that's weird because typically the Covenant has never cared about anything human, especially buildings. Typically, buildings get destroyed quick. So he kind of marks that as, this is something we need to investigate. And then when he checks in with the Red and Green Team, he gets an like an update from Joshua from Red Team saying like, yo, we found civilians. We need to get them out of here. Now, what I didn't tell you is that the whole plan is to recon in here, of course. But after they recon and ensure that there's no civilians in the city, they were ordered by Oni to nuke the city when they were done. And so right here, finding the civilians tells John that Red Team and Green Team need to work together and get the civilians out. And while they do that, him and Blue Team are going to go investigate what's going on inside this museum. For the moment, though, we do cut back to the Iroquois. And what's cool about this is, Ensign Lovell is now here. He's no longer on his little Archimedes outpost. He is here on the Iroquois. And the moment he walks in, you can see he's confused as to why he's here, but Keyes puts him to work. He makes him hit the ground running. And what I love is at first it makes you think Lovell, when you meet him at the beginning of section 3, is that he's gonna be more like, you're not the boss of me. But no, Lovell hits the ground running. He gets to work. He flows with the rest of the command crew. It's just, I liked the way he developed. And this is where it's a little different than the pilot that Keyes had met in the Cole Protocol. I thought for sure that he would be, kind of like what Lovell is right now. Some significance to Keyes' mission, but he died so quickly that I was like, oh, cool. It's been 6 hours since Keyes, met with Stanforth. He's gotten some sleep. The ship has gotten some repairs. Not a lot, but enough to get the systems running, and it's been rearmed to the teeth. And what we learn here is that the Covenant has returned, and Stanforth has an idea. And what this idea, at least explained by Keyes here, is that they're going to get in kind of like almost, think of a Revolutionary War-esque type of like formation. The ships are going to be lined up, and they're going to do kind of like volleys of shooting at the Covenant. So that way, like, each ship is taking like just an insane amount of damage, and enough to where one can break the shields and another one can put damage within the ship. Keyes says this is a high risk but very high reward formation if it works. The problem is Stanforth is being very hard on everyone. He's not letting them break formation at all. And it gets to the point when the Covenant returns fire on the UNSC fleet that the Cradle comes up and gets in front of all these ships and takes the brunt of the damage, and it gets destroyed. Every crew member that was on the Cradle dies, but that leaves an opening for, once again, these UNSC warships to then volley once again on the Covenant ships. And once they get that second volley out, that's when Stanforth says, everyone break apart, pick a ship, and start attacking. Like, make sure that no one is left alive. During the fight, though, Keyes still feels like something's up. Like, why would the Covenant why would they do this quick dropship maneuver and then have it to where it feels like something bigger is going on and we're not seeing it. So he tells his command crew to start scanning the planet to see if they can find anything, and they do. They find a single lone ship hovering in a geosynchronous orbit of the planet of Sigma Octanus 4, and it's transmitting something. Something is being transmitted from the planet to this Covenant vessel. Keyes then decides to ram this ship, and once he does that, he tries himself to intercept this transmission until it's ultimately cut off. And he's about to get attacked by another Covenant ship before him and the rest of the squad are saved by the other UNSC ship. But before this lone ship can even attack or get destroyed, it leaves. The Covenant just leaves the system. Not the ones, of course, on the planet. They're trapped. But every other ship that was in orb or in space fighting the UNSC just leaves. And everyone feels like they won. Like, there was this sense of victory amongst everyone within the Iroquois. But Keyes doesn't feel like this was a victory. He feels like whatever they were here for, they got it. Back in the city of Côte d'Azur, Chief and the rest of the Blue Team sneak into this museum, kill a couple of jackals, are looking around, and they stumble to a room where they see two behemoth Covenant species basically like putting this rock into like a little container. And they're also using this transmitter to transmit something into orbit. This would obviously be that thing that Keyes had found, or at least detected, being transmitted. What's weird about this part is that John and the rest of them it seems like have never seen hunters. They certainly explain them in a way that like they've never ran into them. And that is a little weird when you think about, one, it's been a 20-year war at this point. Like, this war has been going on since 2552. At the same time, we have seen Master Chief fight a hunter in Halo 4 Forward Unto Dawn, which takes place before a Halo Oblivion. So like, he's fought a hunter before, but here it's like, never seen one before in my life. Either way, blue team engages with the hunters, and it's a tough battle. In fact, it gets so tough that at one point, the hunters use their plasma cannons to shoot at James, and it literally takes his arm off. It's kind of brutal. But fortunately enough, they're able to basically get the hunters out of the room, get whatever this rock is that they were so happy to put in some sort of container, and then destroy the transmitter, which is why the transmission ended for Keyes and the rest of the crew in orbit. Chief and the rest of the team get back into the sewers, get out of the sewers, and get all the way back to their little Alpha HQ base, regroup with the rest of Red and Green team with the civilians they saved, get aboard the Pelican where Corporal Harlan and his people are at, escape the planet, and nuke the city. Mission success. Back aboard the Iroquois, Keyes is kind of like recounting everything that happened, and he just, again, doesn't feel like this was a victory. Before he could really get into it, though, he is ordered back by Michael Stanforth to return to Reach because there's something big going on. And it's not what you think. The planet is under attack, but there is a big plan that they have, and they're going to need someone who's like an excellent captain, and that's Keyes. Roughly a month later, it is now August 12th, and we're on Reach. Chief is headed towards Camp Hathcock. He's heading there to be debriefed by Oni, and he's in his naval dress uniform. He meets with Keyes. Keyes recognizes who John is, even though right here, John's like, I've never met you before. And Keyes is like, I have, but you wouldn't recall because it was a long time ago. And we kind of get some inner, like, a dialogue with Keyes talking about how he feels the guilt of, like, his role and everything in helping basically with the kidnapping and indoctrination of the chief, but he doesn't dwell on it. And for some weird reason, I know this is gonna sound terrible. Maybe I'm a Halsey guy, so I agree. He should not dwell on it. Either ways, Chief is called into the briefing room where at first everyone in this room is arguing. He can't really tell who is who because they're all covered in the shadows. All he knows is that they're arguing, and it's probably more than likely like the top of Fleet Comm and Oni. In this meeting, he's asked about his mission, the details, the rock, the hunters, and then he's asked why he nuked the city. Like, what gave him any belief he should do that? And he says, like, I had my orders by Oni Section 3. So, like, I was just following orders. And then someone in this room calls Chief, and I have it right here, one of Halsey's wind-up toy soldiers. And when he says that, someone in the room, like, barks at this dude and goes, hey, like, say what you want about Halsey or Oni, but this soldier right here has done a lot for us, and you will show him the respect he deserves. And then John is dismissed. He leaves the room, finds Halsey waiting to, like, just say hi to him, and of course he's immediate, like, saluting her, being very submissive to her, but it's just because Halsey is, you know, it's basically like his mother. She then tells Chief that she will be meeting with him and the rest of the Spartans soon for something big, and of course he's excited to get back out in the field and do some work. Now I want to pause here because I see a lot of people who argue that, like, the way Del Rio acts with John, or the way John reacts with Del Rio, or just any time that the Chief is disrespected is weird and it's kind of like 343 lore. I disagree, because here we are seeing someone basically badmouth the Chief. I'm going to reveal who it is. At least, fun fact, if you read the Halo the Fall of the Reach comic, it shows you who calls Chief a wind-up Halsey toy, or toy soldier. It's none other than Colonel James Ackerson, who we know does not like, well, maybe we all don't know, but for the most part, most Halo fans know who Ackerson is. He doesn't like Halsey, but he has his own ambitions. But either way, it is just to go to show that, yes, Master Chief is a legendary soldier. We see that in Halo 1, we see that in Halo 2, 3, and up until 4 and 5 and Infinite, where, like, his legend is synonymous within the entire, not just the UNSC, but the Covenant too. He is this legendary status, but that doesn't mean everyone likes him or cares about him. Specifically, the brass. They're kind of like, cool, dude, like, you're still just a toy, get out of here. Either way, about a week later, actually about 2 weeks later, we're in Castle Base. We're following Halsey's character, who, you know, for a brief moment talks about how A lot of her research, especially from the Project Milner, was kind of like shunted to the side. But fortunately enough, like with the way things are going for the Covenant, or with the Covenant War, and specifically how well the Spartans are performing, she was re-given that budget and re-given a green light to continue that project. We also find that 3 years ago, the Spartan 2 program was publicized. For the most part, the Spartans have been kept under wraps. But here we see that the reason that Oni and the UNSC decided to finally release to the public what the Spartan 2s were, it was to boost morale at a time when the Covenant War was just at such a low point. But one thing to note here is that they don't talk about the actual origins or why they were here or how they got here. They just talk about, hey, the Spartans are here. They're going to be our biggest heroes to defight the Covenant. Hoorah. We learned from Halsey's perspective of the meeting that they wanted to know what that rock was and why it was important. And Halsey kind of knew, like, she said it out loud, like, based off the symbols that were on this rock, because it wasn't just your, like, basic igneous rock. There was something about it that was different. It was either something that was ancient Covenant or a completely different species altogether. And everyone in the room's kind of like, ooh, don't say that, because that would mean there's another alien, like, force we need to worry about. This is important to note because in Meridian Divide, we already have it to where Owen is telling the kids about the Forerunners and Forerunner artifacts. So it's a little weird here to go into Fall of Reach right after Meridian Divide, where it's like the word Forerunner is never used. Even when they find Halo, it's not used. Even looking at this rock and the weird markings and the weird coordinates, never once is the word Forerunner mentioned. So it's kind of one of those things where that's why when the word Forerunner was name dropped by Owen in Battleborn and Meridian Divide, I was like, okay, are we breaking the lore a little bit here? Again, it could be something kept from Halsey. It's not new. Could be something that deeper Oni people know about, like Parangoski, and who just told Owen because he is from Onyx, or at least has been to Onyx. So that could be the reason why, but still here, it was just a little weird to read that. And one fun, interesting thing about this part, I don't know why I'm still holding this, but I am, is while Halsey is doing like all her internal thinkings of how this is more likely something that's foreign, like not Covenant, but a different alien species, Cortana like comes projected in the room and starts talking to Halsey. And it's here that we kind of get Halsey's perspective of Cortana. Cortana is like her best AI. She reveals that she got approval from Oni to make another clone of herself, or at least clone brain parts, to be used to make Cortana. And so basically, Halsey starts questioning Cortana on her own analysis of the rock and everything, and Cortana comes to the same conclusion. This is clearly either Ancient Covenant or something else altogether. Basically, one, it's to test Cortana to see if she is as intelligent as Halsey expects her to be, and two, just to see how close to Halsey Cortana is, because she is, in essence, a clone of Halsey. And we get revealed that there have been, a series of specimens used to create Cortana, so there are more things or more, clone parts that can be used to make more Cortana models, and that is important for a much later book, which you probably don't need any introduction to. But all in all, we hear that Cortana's kind of a yapper, kind of a know-it-all, but Halsey's like, yeah, that's how I was when I was young. I can't even be mad. Anyways, Halsey confirms to Cortana that Project Milner will go forward. And right here, Cortana looks at to this wall of pictures. She has a picture of all the Spartans and asks, who will be Cortana's Spartan? And Halsey says, well, who do you want? And of course, Cortana chooses John. And she goes off her reasoning, like he's, brave. He seems to have something about him that's just probably luck, but altogether, he seems like the perfect Spartan. And in fact, looking at it statistically, him and I are almost a perfect match. Perfectly perfect. And Halsey kind of wonders to herself, is it statistically, is he perfect for her? Or is it just because since Cortana's based off Halsey's brain, Halsey already favors John. John is her favorite Spartan. That is her baby. So is that why Cortana's choosing her? Or him? Altogether though, Halsey agrees that yeah, John will be the one you're paired with. They then start setting up the next set of the mission. What ship? Pillar of Autumn. Cool. Who's the captain? Halsey's like, I got a person in mind. His name's Captain Keyes. 2 days later, on August 27th, 2552, we are back, actually, in the Reach training base where the Spartans were in that amphitheater way back when they were kids, or at least teens, being told about the Covenant is this new alien species that they're going to be sent to fight. We learn here that there's a little over 24 Spartans here, roughly 24, 25 in total. Save for 3, which is Gray Team, and then another who was too injured to return. I've seen 2 reports on who this could be. I think I saw one saying it was Sheila 065, but I think the actual answer is Maria 062. Honestly, I don't actually know who this injured Spartan is. And in fact, I was a little complex because when it said Save 3, I thought they meant Red Team, but at this point, Red Team is considered MIA and basically dead. So it makes more sense that it would be Gray Team, who are still, of course, out and about deep within enemy lines doing their own thing like they were doing in Cole Protocol. This is where Halsey starts to talk about their next mission. And this next mission is the riskiest mission possible. They're going to be sending the Spartans to go and find a ship. They will then commandeer this Covenant ship, use it to find the Covenant homeworld, get to the Covenant homeworld, find a prophet, kidnap the prophet, bring it back so that they can force a peace. The book doesn't actually say it, but this is known as Operation Red Flag. It is kind of like the if all else fails, this is it type plan. And one interesting thing here is that John talks about how he's not even sure what a prophet looks like. Like no one here even knows what they look like. Yet once again, in Meridian Divide, we have it to where we see a prophet, a minor prophet, and Owen says, look, it's a Sanchayun prophet. And it's like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, don't get me wrong. I know it was Cassandra Rose Clark's first book, but someone at 343 had to been like, we can't say prophet. We can't use prophets. They're not supposed to know what they look like. Unless, again, Owen just knows more than everyone else. Either way, after Halsey tells them, she says the war's not going well. And that since this is such a high risk mission, they're not actually ordering the Spartans to go, but they're asking for volunteers. Of course, John and all of the other Spartans immediately get up, raise their hand, volunteering for the work. Another 2 days later, we are now at a training facility where John is given updates to his neural interface. Then he's taken to another room where he's introduced to the Mark V. Basically, it's been given some minor adjustments compared to the Mark IV, but there are 2 major ones. Major one is that he has energy shields. This is the first time the Spartans have had actual full-on working energy shields. The way it's powered up is the same way we see at the beginning of Halo Combat Evolved. The second major update is the fact that he can now interface with an AI to the level that like a UNSC ship would be. And this is where John is introduced to Cortana. And I don't know, I guess with having Infinite's little, memory unit where it shows John meeting Cortana, reading this part was honestly just kind of like heartfelt to me. And at the same time, it was heartbreaking because of what we know with Cortana. Now, say what you want of whether Cortana going bad or not was a good part on 343, but I will say is that overall, like, I think that it was kind of a good start and finish with her. Either way, Halsey tells Chief all about Cortana, how she will be interfaced with him directly through his helmet and through his neural interface within his head, and that like basically Cortana would have the ability to help Chief react, to be more efficient, to be faster. Chief does note he's a little worried about Cortana being able to take control of the armor, but Halsey says no, that's not what she can do. All she really can do is translate kind of like the impulses in your mortal cortex directly to the armor. Basically just allowing for a quicker and more efficient reaction times, just sending those brain signals to the armor quicker so he can react. It doesn't mean she can control it, just make it faster. Halsey then tells Chief that like he's going to be going through a training obstacle. The obstacle or the goal, ring the bell. Just like he did when he was 6 years old, when he first did not work well with Sam and Kelly. Here he is once again playing that exact same mission, but without them. It's just him and Cortana. And this scene is so cool. First and foremost, he does a quick hand-to-hand combat with some ODSTs. He doesn't want to kill them because he's like, the UNSC needs every person they can take. But by God, these people are not going to be getting up anytime soon. He basically hits them with the Batman combo and says, now talk. well, he doesn't say the now talk, but let's just say that they're going to hate Spartans, specifically the chief, for the rest of their lives. I would. He then goes through a couple of like normal obstacles, you know, like there's one where it's like these turrets that are facing him. There's one where it's landmines, and he uses Cortana to like determine where the landmines are. He uses Cortana to react faster. And then the last part of the mission is him getting attacked by this jet. This Skyhawk comes in and it's trying to kill Chief. Like it's shooting at him, it's launching missiles at him. Chief uses Cortana's ability to, you know, obviously do fast math, and he's able to react and deflect a missile, not enough to where it doesn't do anything, but enough to keep him from being taken the full impact. After that, he rings the bell and we hear Halsey say, "Colonel Ackerson, call off your people, he won." And it's kind of like, okay, so Ackerson had a part in all this. Another 2 days later, we have it to now where Cortana is above the UNSC Pillar of Autumn. They brought the Pillar of Autumn to Keyes and said, "What do you think of it?" He's like, it's kind of a slow piece of crap. Strong, they're durable, but they are slow and they are old. And they're like, "Yeah, we agree. That's your baby." And Keyes is like, Either ways, Cortana's on the ship doing system checks just as Captain Keyes is about to arrive. While she's doing this, Cortana gets into a little bit of mischief. She looked into that training that John and her were doing and discovers that like Halsey allowed for live fire, but not to the degree that was actually utilized. The missiles, the sentry guns, the landmines were all Colonel Ackerson's. And we learned that Ackerson wanted Chief to fail because he wanted to utilize and say like, look, Halsey's even grand hero is a failure. Support me in my goal, my project. And of course it failed because it's John and Cortana. Either way, Cortana took that personally, as she should. She looks into his CSV, looking into his background, and he was a good soldier. But now he's become more of a political person, and Cortana hates that. So what does she do? Let me read it to you right here. Cortana decides to wire money from Ackerson's bank account to a brothel, knowing that the receipts would go back to his home, where his wife would find them. And then she made it seem like he would ask for a reassignment, you know, for a different area, like the front lines. And even Cortana right here says is like, basically, by the time any of this is like figured out, how it even happened, he's already going to be on the front lines. He's going to be out of me, Chief, and Halsey's face. And I'm like right here, I'm like, I know Cortana and the weapon, aka Joyeuse, are infiltration-esque AIs, but girl, relax. And you know, one other cool thing is that Cortana wants to look more into John. She looks into his background. She hacks into Oni to see that he was kidnapped. And even here, she kind of questions how Halsey could do something like this. But she ultimately believes that the ends justify the means and that Halsey did the right thing. And it's here where Cortana says like she now wants to protect the Chief and she will protect him. She also makes it to where if anyone discovers that she hacked in, it would once again look like Ackerson. Relax, Cortana. As Keyes and the Spartans get onto the Pillar of Autumn, they're all getting ready. 25 Spartans are getting prepped and ready to launch for their mission. But just as they're getting ready to enter slipspace to leave the system, Fleetcom contacts them and says, everyone needs to get back to Reach. The Covenant is attacking. There's one small little chapter in here. It's literally like a page. All you need to know is that a prowler known as the Circumference had docked at one of Reach's space station, like docking stations. We're gonna call it Gamma Station, that's what it's called. It was here to have its stealth capabilities upgraded, but then they found out that something, an AI, was hacking into the system, trying to figure out what this ship is. Oni wanted to keep everything about this ship to the toppest secret they can keep it. That they decided to maintain secrecy of the ship by scrambling its registration numbers, isolating itself from the docking computers that it's at, implementing computer intrusion software, and engaged alpha security. What this all means is that this docking station and its AI who runs it does not know that there is a ship docked onto it known as the Circumference, and it cannot access it. And that becomes real vital soon. We kind of cut back to just a little bit before when, the rest of the unit or the Pillar of Autumn's informed about the Covenant coming. We hear about this other remote outpost sensing station known as Fermion. And here, Chief Petty Officer McRobb and his crew are going about their day, being normal, checking the sensor probes to see if there's anything coming out of slip space they need to be worried about. And they come across a large mass. And they realize that this mass, or at least Chief McRobb goes, I've seen this before with Sigma Octanus 4. The Covenant has found Reach. We gotta alert everyone. So they alert Fleet Comm, and they start activating Cole Protocol, but one of their computers is in a reboot system, so they can't access it and initiate Cole Protocol. So McRobb says, we gotta do what we gotta do, guys. He self-detonates the entire station, so that way the Covenant cannot get it. And 300 ships begin to arrive to Reach. Keyes comes down as John and the rest of the Spartans realize that the ship is pulling a U-turn. And when Keyes updates him on what's happening, John tells him well, we don't actually have to scrap the mission, because if you think about it, we're gonna have access to a bunch of Covenant ships. Just get us close to one that's been disabled. My team will get aboard and we'll continue Operation Red Flag. Keyes reluctantly agrees, but he's like, all right, if I can get close enough, you can, but I cannot guarantee it. And Chief's like, we just need the chance. The attack on Reach is immediately just bad. And the reason why is because there are over 300 ships, 314 Covenant ships that are just keep exiting the system. And the super Mac guns, like these ginormous Mac stations, kind of like the ones we see in Halo 2, are doing a really good job at destroying these ships. But now the Covenant's attacking them, and the Covenant's getting down to the surface and taking out their defense generators that will basically allow, if these generators fall, Reach falls. So Keyes has to basically, again, scrub Operation Red Flag. And this is where John tells him, hey, get my Spartans down to the planet and they will defend those generators so Reach doesn't fall. And Keyes is like, cool. However, there's another issue. There's a ship aboard Gamma Station that has all of its nav data intact, and the AI, known as Doppler, cannot access this ship, known as Circumference. We need to get a team on there to destroy this nav data. So John's like, okay, cool. Send all the rest of my Spartans down to Reach. They'll defend those generators. Blue Team and I will then get onto this station and destroy the nav data. As John comes in, he tells Fred that he is in charge of the ground forces, while him, Linda, and James, just 3 Spartans, will go to Gamma Station and destroy the nav data. So as this is happening, the rest of the Spartans go to the surface and start defending these generators. John and his team then get to the Gamma Station and begin their operation to destroy the nav data, while Keyes and the Autumn engage with the ships in atmosphere, or at least in space, and things are going well. There's a lot of Covenant ships. They are able to take out this one ship that's kind of out of the kill zone of a Mac gun, and it's basically sniping ships from a distance. So Keyes rams the thing and destroys it. And it's going okay here, but then he radios the Spartans on the ground team and hears that there's too many forces, things are getting overrun. And then they lose contact with the Spartan ground forces. He then contacts Chief to see how things are going for him. Landing on Gamma Station, John, Kelly, and James are fighting off waves of Covenant 2. And they're utilizing thruster packs, of course, because they're in zero gravity at first. But they use a Pelican to blow a hole into the station that they can get into. Unfortunately, while all this is happening, the Covenant place some well-placed needlers on James's thrusters, making him lose control, and he goes spinning out into space. And that's the last time you ever see James 005. He'll never return. He's gone. He can't come back. He's dead. Get over it. Inside, John and Linda come across 4 Marines. 2 of these Marines are important because it's Johnson and our sweet, sweet boy Jenkins, who we've not seen since Contact Harvest, so it's exciting to see both of these boys back. Chief obviously hasn't seen Johnson since Halo Silent Storm, which I think it was sad that he was not back in Oblivion. But again, right here, Johnson, those stories don't exist yet, but it feels weird when they talk, and it's very formal. And, yes, sir, Master Chief. I'm like, ooh. Either way, inside of this station, things are going to shit. There's a lot of Covenant. So John basically finds a Pelican within this station. Because remember, it's an orbital docking station, so there's ships everywhere. And he uses the ship to, fire on the Covenant, extract the Marines, shoot at the circumference's bridge command window, get in, destroy the nav data. He then gets back on the Pelican and he's getting ready to leave the station when he realizes that the bay doors are closed and the AI can't open them. So Linda's like, don't worry, I got you. She gets out, manually opens these bay doors, and as she's doing this, she's attacked by the Covenant, and she is shot multiple times with plasma rounds to the point that John and the rest, or Johnson and these Marines have to get out and pull her inside. I'm not going to question how they carried her, but they did. They got her back inside. They then make their way to the UNSC Pillar of Autumn. John basically checks over Linda and finds that her lifelines are slim to zero. And she basically dies. He then gets back to the Pillar of Autumn and talks with Keyes. He says, all right, when are we going to pick up my Spartans on the ground? And Keyes is like, we're not. We lost contact with them, and there's no way we can get down there. We have to leave the system. We got to continue Operation Red Flag with just you. And he's like, okay, cool. What about James? He's still out there, scan for any IFF tags. There's nothing. They can't find him. And as this is happening, as John is realizing that he might be it, he might be the last Spartan to be alive, Keyes orders Cortana to jump into slip space, utilizing random coordinates. And Cortana starts putting in these coordinates. And again, John's over here just thinking about how he's it. He's the last Spartan. And when he looks at the coordinates Cortana's putting in, he's like, those look familiar. And she's like, oh, weird. Don't worry about it. And the Pillar of Autumn makes their jump into slip space as the Covenant begins their glassing of the planet of Reach. In the end, we don't get a timestamp exactly, but Cortana reveals that everyone who was non-essential went into cryo. John, being one of them, is in cryo. So is the captain. And she reveals that the coordinates that she had thrown in weren't random like they're supposed to be. They were coordinates based off that rock and this stuff that was being transmitted from the planet of Sigma Octavius 4 to that Covenant vessel. That's why John recognized them. He recognized these patterns. She wasn't utilizing... when Cortana looked at the patterns, she realized that it wasn't like a language. It wasn't trying to say something. It was coordinates. And that's why she wanted to figure out what they were and why the Covenant was so interested in these coordinates. And that's why she threw them in there. When they begin to get near the coordinates, the crew starts to wake up. And, Captain Keyes wakes up. During the time of cryo, they've been repairing the ship to the best of their ability. Cortana wondered if Halsey made it off planet. It was unlikely. But overall, what you need to know is that the crew wakes up. Everyone's feeling pretty shaken because the Reach fell. But as they're feeling this despair, this defeat, they come into the command bridge and look out into the distance of where they have come to. And they see a ring-shaped world known as Halo. And that is the Fall of Reach. Now, I'm going to briefly go over the adjuncts. Remember, the adjuncts are just extra content at the end of the book. The original copy of the Fall of Reach did not have it, but the 2011 and the 2019 edition do. There are a total of, I believe it was 7 of them. And they're good, but there's nothing in here that was major. So I will go through real quickly and tell you what each one's about. First one is about Captain Cole in 2530 interrogating an elite, an AI known as Solopsil. Is just basically recording the interaction, and ultimately it's them talking to this elite, and the elite's telling them that they're scum, they're an abomination to their gods, and the Covenant will destroy them. And that's what Cole's like, we cannot let them find Earth. The second one is actually kind of cool because it comes from Supreme Commander Luro Tarelomi on the actions of Fel Lodomi. And he talks about how Lodomi is reckless, has a good hatred for humans, but ultimately leads him into dumb things like abandoning his post. Lotami actually did engage with a Spartan known as Sheila-065 and captured a human woman known as Halsey. Supreme Commander Luro basically knows that humanity will come for this woman and that they will be ready for them. And when they easily take out these humans, they will rejoin the fleets of furious retribution and rigorous prayer. Now this was cool because this is the Supreme Commander that is in Halo Legends for the mission The Package, where we see John and the rest of the Spartans go and save Halsey. The third one is kind of an attachment to that same story, but this time it's from a human perspective. We have Vice Admiral Berlin Trusky to Captain Lucius Jurin, who basically talks about what happened on the planet of Meridum and how Halsey was captured, Spartan Sheila-065 was killed by an elite, and now that they're sending Spartans to extract the package. Number 4 is an Oni operative known as Mike reaching out to another Oni operative known as Agnes. And they basically just talk about Ralph. I don't know if it's Ralph 103 or 303. I need to do more research, but in the book it says Ralph 303. Halopedia says 103. All you need to know is they talk about Ralph's basic, like, his troubled past, his becoming a Spartan, how he killed his own clone, and how that led to some serious psychological disturbances in his head. And it basically is what led him to, go through all that and then go back into the military as a normal person, as a Marine. And we see this person, Ralph, in Halo Legends with the whole Daisy mission, where Daisy's talking about her past. The 5th one is interesting because it's Keyes talking about the refits for the Pillar of Autumn, being annoyed that he cannot tell his crew the full mission of Operation Red Flag, and also having to keep secret that he knows that the Covenant is already attacking Reach on planet side, because he says things like, many of these people don't know that we're leaving Reach, and more than likely it will not be here when we come back. So I think it was just kind of 343's way of shoving in that we already knew that Reach was under attack, rather than just it came under attack on August 30th. It's just that, similar to Battleborn with Meridian, they were just keeping most of the attack under wraps, which is still weird because a large Covenant fleet shows up, but we'll talk about that later. Number 6 is a transcript of a conversation between a Sergeant Schicker and a Sergeant Poteet. This one is mostly the description says it's determined if these people knew or how they may have known of the incoming attack on Reach by the Covenant, because the conversation is these two men basically catching up, talking about the state of war, and that Sergeant Schicker is feeling paranoid that something's happening because he's seeing Spartans on Reach, and typically where Spartans are is where the major battles are. And if they're on Reach, does that mean they're here? And then the last one's just kind of a winter contingency declaration of supplemental orders for Oni. Basically what it says is that it gives Oni agents the ability to disobey direct orders from the chain of command so long as they are captain and below. I don't know what the importance of this was. I'm assuming it's some of those extra bits from the Reach information lore drop that we got, and to show why Halsey kind of was able to do what she wanted during the fall of Reach, rather than, or not the fall of Reach, but Halo Reach the game. Either way, that is the end of the adjunct. Some cool, interesting stuff in there, but let's talk about the book in general. I'm honestly not gonna sugarcoat it. This is the best book I've read in this long line. From Cryptum till Fall of Reach, this was peak. I could not put the book down. I loved Captain Keyes' character again. I loved seeing John and the rest of the blue team. What was the only rough part about this book was knowing how dated a lot of the information was, because we have it to where we know about the foreigners, we know about the hunters, we know about engineers, and yet half the time you have to act like none of them exist. And how half the time they say they've never heard of these things or seen these things, yet some of the past books do show that they do. Of course, they're books that came out after the fact, but it's just sometimes, it's a little weird, it's a little inconsistent. I don't know if there's really a way to fix it without rewriting major sections of the story that I'm like, it's fine. Look, it is fine. It's inconsistent. It's not going to hurt the story. One thing I will say about The Fall of Reach, though, is it is like the heaviest adapted version of any Halo story. I mean, you have comic books of it. You have the original version, the 2011 definitive edition, the 2019 edition. You have the brand new version coming out this year. And of course, you have the TV show. Okay, yeah, I own it. I'm sorry. It's a still book, and it has Halo. Yell at me. But overall, what I'm trying to get at is that Halo Reach, The Fall of Reach, is a beloved story. It is, in fact, the best book in the series, in my opinion. I think that even though we're reading through all these books, and one day I'll get to a point where I've caught up, it's not for a while now, I will go to my grave saying that this is the best Halo book. No story can top it. No story ever will top it. Some stories can get close, but quite frankly, The Fall of Reach is the pinnacle of what a Halo novel should be. And I hope that either they can get Eric Nyland back for one more book, or just someone out there is able to capture the essence that Nyland had and make a book in the Halo universe that's like similar to it. The Shadows of Reach was good, but it was no Fall of Reach. Kelly Gay is my favorite non-Nyland author in this series. She literally my favorite. But even her books, as well as they are, do not touch this book. I think just from first to last, it is a phenomenal book. The character development is fantastic. I love watching Keyes going from a young lieutenant to captain. I love seeing John going from a boy who's like, I just need to win and do whatever I want, to the Master Chief, to his meeting with Cortana, to his last game of Ring the Bell, where he went from that kid who didn't need help to relying on Cortana to succeed. It's such a great developing story that I think Eric Nyland deserves all the praise that we as fans could give him for just such a great book. My last thing I'm going to say on this book, and it will probably get me some hate by some of the game nerds. This book makes me hate Halo Reach. Okay, hate is a strong word. I'm wearing a Halo Reach t-shirt. I love Reach. It's a great game. It's a good story. My problem is that game was specifically made to retcon this. And I hate that because this is a fantastic book. I think there was a way for Bungie to still make this game and respect the book. You know, I would have loved more of actually being on Reach in this book. Do not get me wrong. The TV show is terrible. It is a bad show. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry, but 343, you messed up on the TV show. But what I will say is we give that show a lot of grief in season 2 for The Fall of Reach being only one episode. But like, here's something I'm going to show you. Out of this 350 plus page book, it's like 415 now with the extra goodies. But out of this large book, that much, okay, that little bit compared to this is the adjunct. That little bit is all of The Fall of Reach. And most of it isn't even The Fall of Reach. The Fall of Reach happens like here. You lose even more pages because some of it is just the Milner upgrades, talking about Chief getting Mark V. The actual Fall of Reach is only a few chapters, and it's quick. They're told, yo, come back. Reach is under attack. They get there. They find out they need to go down to Reach to protect generators. There's nav data on a docking station. Chief, go there. Come back, we're done. That is the Fall of Reach. So all I'm saying is the game Halo Reach did better with the actual Fall of Reach. It was fun playing on Reach. It was fun seeing the development of the Covenant starting their small attack to a full-scale invasion leading to a glassing. But the story and the overall importance of Halo was captured better in the book. If you asked me, which would you need more to prepare for Combat Evolved? Halo Reach the game or Fall of Reach the book? Buddy, it's gonna be the Fall of Reach. Because the Halo Reach game doesn't do much to set up the actual story. It does a better job of explaining why Cortana has the coordinates to Alpha Halo. I do think the whole rock thing in here was a little goofy. Because really? We've had access to Alpha Halo's coordinates this entire time in a stupid rock? It just made more sense in the game that Cortana and Halsey had stumbled upon a Forerunner ship and they studied it and that had the coordinates. That made more sense. It was cooler too. But overall, this is just such a better story. And I loved it. Reading this got me giddy. It made me want to play Combat Evolved. playing Halo Reach doesn't ever make me want to play Combat Evolved. It does at the very, very end when I see the beginning of Combat Evolved with Pillar of Autumn arriving to Alpha Halo. But from the moment I was reading this, I was like, I want to play Combat Evolved. So, what should you read, watch, do, and or play in order to prepare for Fall of Reach? Realistically, you don't have to read anything because from all these books, the only reoccurring character, of course, is Chief, Keyes, Halsey, and Johnson. Johnson's role is so minute that it's not even really existent, so you don't need to read Cold Protocol or Contact Harvest. Keyes doesn't really mention much of what happened in Cold Protocol. I think there's like one mention of it, but it's not like you need to read Cold Protocol to understand it. It would help if you want to learn more about his past and why maybe the brass looks down upon him a little more, but it's not important. And the last time we see Chief is in Oblivion. That's in 25-26. Like 26 years prior to sections 3 to 4. And again, this is technically the start of this book can be used to prepare for Silent Storm and Oblivion and Collateral Damage. So realistically, you could use this to prepare for more books. You don't really need anything to prepare for this book. I think it does a good job of being its own thing. It's why I tell people, if you're going to start on any Halo book, start with the Fall of Reach. Now, you could play Halo Reach. It's a good, somewhat supplemental help. Not really, because it's trying to retcon this. So, you know what? I take that back. Don't read it. You could read the comic book. The comic book helps with visual aids. And actually, the comic book, fun fact, has extra bits. There are parts in the book, or in the comic, that aren't in the book. But that's because 343 made the comic book and probably add more extra stuff to make it flow and to have just some of those extra bits, specifically Colonel Ackerson's and a little bit more. So you could read the comic book. And honestly, I'd recommend it. Comic book is fun. But that is it for today's video. I know this is a long video because it still has its sister video that I have to attach to it. This will be its own separate video, and then I will later in life make them one. I don't know when that's going to come out, but it will be a while because that just sounds like a lot of work. But overall, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in Halo: The Flood.
Cortana, all I need to know is, did we lose them?
I think we both know the answer to that.